Hello, David McMillan here. If my YouTube feed means anything, many of us are interested in things in space. Some of the smartest people on Earth are interested in space. They convince others to pay for and build huge machines that surge fire just to pitch cameras beyond Earth. There must be something out there. Are we smart people too? No, not really. We're just monkeys staring at the moon. And what about the great Fermi Paradox? Why haven't we heard from advanced alien civilizations by now? Of the 2 trillion galaxies we know are out there, each with maybe 100,000 million suns, surely some of them sent machines from their planets to broadcast their greatness. Yet it seems not. We haven't heard. But wait, let's not forget what happens with monkeys who stare at the moon, and why there is really no paradox. Italian-American physicist Enrico Fermi supposedly asked the question, where are all the smart aliens, if there's so many out there? I'm not sure quite why that's a paradox. Really, a paradox is a situation where 2 rational elements produce an irrational result. But here we've got all these great numbers of suns and chances for civilizations on the one side, and on the other, well, we have nothing. And the absence of evidence either way doesn't create a paradox. But put that aside for now. Now, I don't usually do science-related videos because so few people have thoughts about science worth crushing. But this is a fair question, and I have something to add that others may have not. The common reasons given for the lack of alien radio chatter or alien visitors are 2 major obstacles. The first is that the odds against simple life becoming advanced technology makers is huge. That's true enough. It's no slam dunk for nature to create complex life in the first place. Our universe goes back over 13 billion years that we know of. Our Earth itself goes back 4.5 billion years. Earth cooled from a volcanic hell to having oceans within just a few 100 million years. Extraordinarily, almost no sooner than there was water splashing around on Earth, then single-celled life arose. By that I mean reproductive life with RNA. By the way, that rapid appearance alone tells me something big. It's likely this simple life was already in some of the ice that splattered to Earth. Probably simple reproducing carbon-based life is just about everywhere, and definitely formed elsewhere in the Milky Way. Our galaxy is rotten with life. But before you get too excited about hidden aliens, slow down. That simple bacteria was not supplanted by anything more interesting for 2 billion years. And even then by a process that was really against the odds. One group of simple cells allowed another bit of cellular machinery to grow inside them and be passed on to another generation with great energy benefits. The eukaryotic cells appeared with little batteries in the form of mitochondria, itself a descendant of a mutant bacterium. You don't need to know how this works to know it was a long shot. 2 billion years had passed without those chance elements coming together in oceans full of cells. And I bet you won't find any eukaryotes on Europa. This is grim news for widespread civilization throughout the universe, but it gets worse. 2 billion years is a long chunk of the age of the universe to invest with just one step. Well, with a few steps. And you've got to have good weather on Earth itself. Or interesting weather. Yeah. It was a very rainy day in Tenerife. Little Mikey would not be with us today. but that's a different thing, or not. But mostly you need to get on with it, the civilization beginning steps between the ice ages. Just try getting a builder out on a Sunday to knock up a couple of pyramids with a mile-high glacier blocking your drive. 200,000 years since the mitochondrial Eve stood up in Africa, and we only squeezed in our 5,000 years of civilization when the last cycle of glaciation eased off. Similarly, Earth has had some real lucky breaks. A chunk of Mars, its evil twin anyway, crashes into us early enough to form a very handy moon, but not so late it wrecks the gaff. Handy moon because it gives stability and seasons and tides. Not everybody has that. Down on the ground, dinosaurs rule. Then whack, another space chunk kills them off so little rats get a chance to rule. And the planet is so tranquil then. So pacific. Millions of years go by, relatively peacefully, protected by a molten iron core that produces a magnetic field to deflect harmful space radiation. But still, you have to be extra lucky. The cyclic ice ages could have meant the end for us so many times. Look to those who never made it. Devonians, Neanderthals, gone. Homo agaster, Homo habilis, Homo rudolfensis, gone. And let's not forget Homo erectus. Gone. So many homos. None of them stood a chance, did they? Bad hair days or bad weather ice ages, they were very far from advanced civilization, and 100,000 years of being dumb tribal fuckwits before these last 5,000 that fine-tuned the evolution of smart brains. I can't even begin to explain the complexity of modern neurons in humans and how that lies in with this moment. Was it after ancient empires fell, or the Age of Enlightenment maybe, when finally one could say, there's no going back now. We understand the scientific method. We know we have to cultivate nerds to reach that level of pure science when our dreams for the unending future, diseases vanquished, limitless energy, and absolutely lifelike robotic sex toys will be guaranteed. We're in the clear now. We really are. We won't nuke each other or be wiped out by viruses. Well, not the people amongst us who matter anyway. Yes, there's no going backward now. I don't think so. But this doesn't happen too often, not throughout the universe, no matter how many stars and bars. So why no alien TV shows picked up at Arecibo's radio telescope? Well, it's been shut down for a while now, but the second issue of the Great Silence, that's the major point of distance. We are just too far away, and even too far away for the messenger probes sent by advanced aliens, certainly if they occurred in another galaxy. Of course, it took us over 4 billion years to get here, and the universe is expanding away like mad, so that only leaves our own galaxy to listen to. But that's that tiny star box, the old Milky Way. It's still got plenty. What's more, radio communication of the future will go the way of the cell phone in terms of power output. I mean that the period when there are TV and radio signals of thousands of watts being pumped out on any advanced planet is no more than around 100 years when you think of it. Don't look for them. The probes? Would we rush to fund a mass probe mission with millions of probes with some crazy batteries, or the ones that make themselves, which is kind of ridiculous, flying off around our galaxy just to leave a greeting card on planet Gob? No, not soon, and frankly not ever. I don't mean because we will destroy ourselves, or that we'd only send probes if we have some chance of viewing the results. It's not that. And now, here's the one reason I've never heard anyone put forward as to why we don't hear from alien civilizations. That is, the future state of our human outlook, our ideas of what to do with our time in the future. I'd better clarify this. Most of the talk about alien civilizations and their spacefaring interests seems to give them the minds of 20th century teenagers or sci-fi freaks. I mean, to speak about generational spaceships of all things. In that scenario, Earth is overcrowded, so some of us, a few handfuls, set off in huge craft where we live out our lives, have space babies, and they grow up, have no more experience of Earth than the holodeck simulations of mountains and lakes, while being taught that it is better to roam the galaxy in a tin can, hoping to find an oxygen-rich planet with oceans on which to found a colony. Oh, and not those children, but the children of the children, the children's children by factor of 10. What mutants they would be by the time they found a planet. And too bad their best find after 10,000 years travelling was a beautiful blue world of seas and lush vegetation with friendly animals and... no, wait a minute. The planet they found has 10 times the mass of Earth and so crushing gravity, and the oxygen below the mountains is almost liquid. You know, I don't know why science fiction shows always uninhabited planets with wonderful tropical forests and little else, as though the plant life became before anything else. You do know that on Earth, sea animals appeared before any plant life on the barren rocks. And also, in any long space journey, your outbound acceleration at 2Gs alone would flatten you to the floor. So 1G is about your limit. And you'd better know where you're headed, because at midpoint, the remainder of your journey is using half the fuel just to slow down. You can't get off at nearly a tenth the speed of light, can you? Anyway, do we really expect that advanced technological civilizations would behave like 20th century mankind? And how will we think in the future? Well, soon expect to live to, 140 years in good health by the 22nd century? And in, say, 300 years' time, I think for many death will be optional, if you're rich. And most people will be then, by today's standards. The world's population will have settled in at around 11 billion and slowly rise. And all the deserts will be green, so I don't think people will be in any rush to leave Earth until, I'll put it at the year 2900 and onwards. In any case, by which time Blue Venus will be ready, having been terraformed. But imagine you can live for hundreds of years, the body's cells regenerating, organs repairing, and most importantly, the brain nourished not only to avoid disease and degradation, but keeps its peak enthusiasm for sharpened senses. Now, when I'm describing what happens to us in the future, is what I'm saying the advanced aliens would have gone through the same thing. But we can only speak of our own minds, but that in some ways would be a mirror if we're talking about spacefaring aliens. Anyway, back to us. You're living, perhaps eternally, but certainly for hundreds of years. What are your enthusiasms? Sure, physical adventuring will be high on the list of leisure, but I doubt that off-world travel will hold any allure when robotic probes will provide the information, all the information that our little star cluster can give, and we won't get much further with those. As for we Earthlings, the eons that aliens would need to wait for transgalactic probes to report back would be weak payoff in a future where computer power alone will allow the simulation of any world imaginable, produced by plugging in as many variables as one might care to invent. Do you imagine, at the age of 400, your interests will be fast cars, loose women, extreme sports, perverse sex, designer drugs, and the ultimate pair of trainers? Why, when you reached 180, none of those things held your interest anymore. And here, you are living in a world where no one goes hungry. It is rare for death by disease. Few have children. The numbers of replacement kids are fast draining in the West even today, and almost every item that today is considered newsworthy is of no interest to most people. And for in that future, not so very far away, there will be absolutely no secrets and no scandals worth the name. No hunger, diseases all curable, and no wars. You're saying not possible, you say. Not with human nature. We'll always drag ourselves down. Well, how do you account for the slow rise in the technological age and, in most ways, the civilization age? Anyway, it is possible and inevitable, and in many ways, what a boring world it will become. People would long for the injustices and outrages of earlier eras. The average age today is young, but the average age is getting older. The news, events that take your attention, are almost entirely the follies, mistakes, yearnings, and skullduggery of fairly young people, and probably because they look a bit more interesting than the shriveled ones. But when it comes to the wizened old, the grasping, incompetent power brokers and politicians, but in the future they'll be replaced by much duller but less corrupt AI governments. This advanced alien space probing and space travelling exploration that we wonder why we haven't seen would not have become so advanced without facing extended life and that change in outlook that will also be ours in a few hundred years. In our home planets, we will use less and less transmission power. People won't hear from us. Even the lighting of the streets won't be visible in the end. It'll be so focused. I was just thinking, I got distracted. You know, the transmissions that have gone out, the first bits of Earth TV to be available to our aliens might be, they say, might be Hitler's pre-war German television broadcasts. Well, that's not actually true. Early German TV went to local theatres. Unluckily for the aliens, they're more likely to suffer light opera from 1938 out of London's Crystal Palace. They stopped the TV during the war in the UK. As civilization advances, an age of big radio and TV signals is long gone. In fact, I would say that in a few hundred years, even city lights will be invisible from the moon. The lighting will be so personalized, so narrow. Earth may appear uninhabited. Have you thought of that? If they're advanced enough, it's not like they'll be glowing with some ring of machinery. They're so clever, you can't even tell. Yeah. But put aside the technology of the future. It is the mind of the future that will dictate what is important. Can you imagine a world where the numbers of people under 50 are less than 10% of the population? Goodbye youth culture dominance. Yet you know that the majority of the old will appear anyway as though they were frozen around 35 years of age by the way they look. That will be part of that engineering. The only people you'll see who look like an aging Keith Richards will be, rebellious teenagers sculpted by faddish surgeons of the times to upset their rich parents. I have to tell you that now in my mid-60s I find very few people with a broad worldview. Most of the people, too, have reached their 70s and 80s, have had experience to know more but they have succumbed to diseases of body and mind, mostly doddering fools, dementia being rampant. Almost everyone under 50 seems so immature too. Not all, though. You know who you are. And what's that old saying, though? If only youth knew, if only age could. That's the real human tragedy. But that'll be in our past. So we don't see advanced alien societies because they are far away, don't leave a big footprint, and at their age have no interest in sacrificing centuries to travel. So how will you think when you are in your hundreds? What will you do with your time and interests in a world without troubles, without causes, nothing to fight for? I have a pretty good idea, but one thing's for sure. Putting yourself about the universe at great cost won't be one of your interests.
I agree.